The use of digital media in the FYC classroom is necessary to introduce students to these new modalities of non-alphabetic composition and to prepare students for the rest of their education and careers. Multimodality is becoming a larger part of scholarship, so it is particularly important for students to be exposed to these new forms of media in the composition classroom. The development of digital media and conversations about the use of multimodality in the humanities signals the need for students and instructors alike to develop multimedia communication skills. This transition has been building over the past 30 years. As Jody Shipka writes, as we embrace or even reject newer technologies, as we anticipate the way communicative landscapes might continue to change, it is important to keep in mind the rich, material, multimodal dimensions of classroom practice, of learning, and, in fact, of living. Our lives have become increasingly digital, but most of our work in English departments has remained static, despite pushes from rhetoric and composition scholars. First-year composition is the most important course to incorporate multimodality. The FYC Classroom is the foundation of writing at the college level. FYC must be the force that pushes higher education to expand its use of these mediums. Despite criticisms FYC receives from other departments, it is necessary for it to be a leader in the changing face of technology in academia. The creation of FYC was to make better writers, and that is still the goal. But the avenues for composition have again expanded, and so the foundation of writing in college now includes communicating in a variety of digital modalities. And yet, the inclusion of new modalities isn't all that new in the composition classroom. Shipka argues that we must acknowledge that multimodality has a long history in the FYC classroom, and once we accept this, the challenge becomes one of finding ways to attend more fully in our scholarship, research, as well as our teaching, to the material, multimodal aspect of all communicative practice. Alexandria Hidalgo advocates for different kinds of media, such as film and blogs, to count towards scholarship on the professional level in her video book, Camera Rhetorica. The inclusion of these forms of new media as scholarship encourages instructors and professors to work with multimedia composition in the classroom because they better understand the importance of communication in non-alphabetic forms. By expanding the acceptance of multimedia scholarship, the use of multimedia becomes more conventional in the classroom. Additionally, the use of multimodality in the FYC classroom specifically also fulfills several goals of feminist pedagogies, including writing as a tool for self-revelation, critique, and transformation, distributing agency through collaborative practices and alternative classroom arrangements, and teaching and mentoring as forms of professional activism, making the FYC classroom more inclusive and developmental. Using multimodalities helps fulfill the feminist pedagogical goal of self-revelation, critique, and transformation by encouraging reflection and metacognition. Multimedia projects encourage self-reflection because these projects force students to think of their writing in new ways and better understand how we write. Brooke writes, we think of computer literacy as multi-layered, comprising of functional, critical, and rhetorical dimensions. This layering allows students to investigate their work and think in different modes when creating multimodal projects. Palmieri sets out goals for using multimedia, including multimedia for reflection. He writes, teachers should engage students in regular reflective writing and discussion about multimodal strategies for invention, scaffolding instruction, so that students can move from participating in directed multimodal activities to making informed, reflective choices about which auditory, visual, and alphabetic strategies will be most helpful to them. In order to better understand the level of accessibility, and by extension, the level of agency students have on our campus to create multimodal projects, I explored the accessibility of creating videos for students at CSULB. As educators, we must be aware of the amount of access students have at every level of multimedia production especially if we require the use of digital technology in our classroom. Brooke argues, we must be aware of students' access and be activists for their access. This may mean something as seemingly small as thinking about where students will store files of their works in progress to make sure that necessary software is installed on computers, to laying groundwork with administration for new or expanding departmental facilities. Through our university, students may purchase Adobe Creative Suite for $20 to install on their own computer. However, they only have access to Adobe Creative Suite for 1 year. Our computer labs, such as the Horn Center, offer access to Adobe Creative Suite. Students can check out filmmaking equipment through CSULB's journalism department for 1 day at a time. These resources illustrate a certain amount of access specifically found on our campus. However, accessibility is still an issue on our campus, specifically when students cannot physically be on campus, as we cannot right now. Multimedia projects can have a powerful effect on students' engagement. In an interview with Kyle D. Stedman and John Silverestro on Plugs, Play, and Pedagogy, Jason Palomari discusses his initial experience with assigning video composition projects. What I saw was that there was a lot of passion from the students for making videos, that they had a real sense of audience. I think the experience of trying to teach a new medium and a more popular medium that students had some investment in really helped me kind of develop the pedagogical sense and kind of open those dialogues and share a lot more the responsibility for evaluating what good means with students and make it more of a collective conversation. When students feel like their work has a purpose, they write better. As opposed to alphabetic essays, videos, prezzies, PowerPoints, and podcasts help students consider their audience when composing their works. Students and instructors growing this practice of using multimodality helps them both develop their skills in a more collaborative relationship as opposed to traditional classrooms, where the professor is seen as a static, imposing figure. Using multimodality, specifically video, Van Kooten argues, rhetoric, then, is focusing on an understanding of the rhetorical situation, so the reader, the writer, and the text itself, and how those interact. Learning to be part of this dynamic helps students understand their writing as part of a larger discourse. Additionally, the rapid development of new digital media creates varying degrees of expertise on these new media. Instructors and professors aren't necessarily experts on each of these mediums. As Brooke points out, teachers must abandon the notion that all expertise must flow from the front of the classroom, particularly when it comes to technology. Students are often the experts on digital mediums, particularly students who have engaged in online participatory cultures. And this challenges traditional classroom hierarchies. In her video book, Hidalgo argues that many rhetoricians who use moving images do not come from a background of filmmaking. Rather, they taught themselves these skills in order to engage in these rhetorical forms of expression. She argues, though the self-taught method can be time-consuming, it teaches us to navigate the web to find answers to technological questions, an invaluable skill for anyone engaging in digital production. This illustrates the importance of learning how to use these mediums and recognize that many who use digital mediums are novices. Additionally, Hidalgo discusses the importance of mentorship as part of feminist filmmaking and supporting the growth of new filmmakers. The ability to use digital media is increasingly essential for students entering the job market. The ability to communicate through media has become an essential part of living in the 21st century. Stuart Selber illustrates one of the issues with English departments is that the profession has preferred to focus on critical concerns instead of functional concerns. It fails to expose students to the wide array of literacies they will need in order to participate fully and productively in the technological dimensions of their professional and personal lives. By incorporating multimodality, FYC will better prepare students for their professional lives as well as develop rhetorical and communication skills. In his book, Remixing Composition, Palomari shows that composition has a long history of multimodality, and digital technologies are the newest aspect of that history. Therefore, we should not be afraid of embracing these new forms of expression. After all, even if we grant that it is important to teach students to craft multimodal text, we must recognize that alphabetic writing remains a value form of composing that we are institutionally and professionally mandated to teach. Using multimodality composition is supposed to enhance alphabetic writing, not replace it. As educators, we must challenge ourselves to grow our communication skills, as well as find new and interesting ways to engage our students in developing their communication skills. In the end, learning how to communicate in the 21st century includes digital modalities, and educators of FYC must be a part of the development. And as scholars, they must enter these kinds of discourse and be recognized for communicating in the style of the 21st century.